Hi, it's Mark Bossert, producer of the Pawlik Automotive podcast. We're here in Vancouver, of course, with Mr. Bernie Pawlik, and they've just announced we're 20-time winners of Best Auto Repair in Vancouver, as voted by their customers. And we're talking cars. How are you doing this morning, Bernie?
Doing well, and happy to have won the Best of Vancouver again. It's exciting news.
So here we go. We're talking about a 1989 Cadillac Deville, which is a pretty old vehicle, but still the AC system had some issues, and that's pretty relevant to all cars. What was going on with this Cadillac?
So this Cadillac came to us. The owner really liked their air conditioning working properly. I mean, that's one of the nice features of a Cadillac. In fact, I mean, every car has air conditioning now, so they used to be kind of a unique Caddy feature, but it's very important to the owner of this car. And she'd had it repaired several times in the past, and it still wasn't working properly. So we took a look at it, did some diagnostic and testing, and found some interesting issues that I wanted to share.
So what testing and diagnosis, what did you find?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, first issue we found is the refrigerant level was quite low. We did a visual inspection for leaks, which we normally do. Didn't find anything. Added some refrigerant, went to test the system, and it was interesting because it would switch, the compressor would switch on for a couple seconds, would generate some pressure, and then switch off, and it wouldn't run anymore unless we shut the key off, recycled it, redid the whole key start cycle, and then it would run for a second or two and then go. So, I mean, we figured we had a leak somewhere, so we did a thorough leak test, couldn't find anything. So obviously whatever was leaking was pretty minimal. We looked over the system electronically and weren't sure whether there was an electronic problem or what it was, but finally realized that looking at the system pressures, it would, when starting up, air conditioning systems have a high and low side pressure. And what would happen is we start the vehicle up and the compressor would kick in, and we could manually kick the compressor in. Even with a full charge of refrigerant, the low side went into a suction, which is like into negative pressure, into vacuum, which is incorrect. And then the high side pressure would not generate much pressure also. So we figured there was probably a blockage in the system somewhere. So we kind of dug a little further and found some interesting pieces. A little bit of history: the compressor had failed on this vehicle once, and the person, I guess, had not put oil in it. That caused the compressor to fail. So someone had put another one in, properly oiled the system, charged it, and then it stopped working after a little bit and arrived at our shop. So there was some repair history to the vehicle, and so there we are.
So do you have some pictures?
I do. I have some awesome pictures to share. So what we have, this is an orifice tube. Now, this was actually the item that we found was plugged. What we found was that when the compressor had failed at least once or twice or sometime in the process of repair, someone should have looked a little closer at the orifice tube and flushed the AC system. Because the reason I'm showing you the new part is you can see this is basically a screen with a little small. It's basically an orifice. It's a small opening, and as the liquid moves through here, it changes the pressure or changes the state. I'm not going to explain this correctly, but there's a state change from liquid to gas or gas to liquid, and that's what causes it to generate cold air. What we found was this. This is, if you can even make sense of it, this is the orifice. This is the orifice tube we took out of the vehicle. All this black stuff, this is dirt, debris, and crap from a failed compressor that's basically just covered the orifice tube screen. I'll go back to the other picture because it gives you kind of an idea. That's a good one. That's the bad one. So you can see this thing was completely plugged. So when the compressor was generating pressure, of course, it was trying to force the liquid through here. It wouldn't go anywhere, and it couldn't suck anything because the liquid and gas wouldn't circulate through the system. That's the key with air conditioning. It's a circulation system. So a couple other things: where the orifice tube bolts into the evaporator core pipes, you can see this is the fitting here, and you can see not so clearly, but there's a lot of dark gray debris in here. And one of the repairs we did, we'll talk about this in a minute, was we flushed the system out, and this is a bucket with a bunch of very, very black liquid in it. So that's those are the pictures I want to share with you.
So how does this much contaminant get into the AC system? Isn't it a closed system, sealed?
It is a closed and sealed system, and how the contaminant gets in is basically as a compressor fails. I mean, there's components in the compressor, or if it overheats, there's oil in the system gets damaged. So, I mean, it was once we figured everything out, it all kind of made sense. A compressor failure, someone didn't flush the system, excuse me, and That's basically what caused everything to block up. So the proper repair is to basically take things apart and flush it out. Now, we obviously replaced the compressor because that unit was damaged. There's also the accumulator in the system. Sometimes it's a receiver dryer, but it's similar. There's slightly different operation components, but that's like the filter of the system. That component we replaced. We obviously replaced the orifice tube because it was completely useless. But in everything else, we flushed all the lines and pipes out. We flushed the evaporator. We flushed the condenser. It's a nasty job. It requires extremely expensive special chemicals. We basically blow these chemicals through the system and do it until it actually comes out clean. That debris is on the bucket. I mean, that's sort of the first round of flushing, but we do it until everything comes out spotlessly clean, and that removes all the debris.
And how did the AC work once you got everything back together?
That was fantastic. Yeah, it worked really well. Nice cold air, compressor cycled on and off just like it should. All the system pressures were normal and worked really well.
So since this is such an older vehicle, how have AC systems evolved over the years?
Well, they've evolved in a few ways. One is a lot of the components are smaller. Like the compressors, if you look on a 1970s car, were massive. They were, some of them. It's not a great example, but some of them are, almost 10 inches long circular compressor, or which is like what was on this Cadillac, or some of them actually look like a little V engine. Chrysler's had those. They're like a 2-piston V motor. It's kind of cool looking piece, but they've evolved down to like quite small. I mean, I'm thinking like some Subarus, for example, the compressors on those are only like about 4 or 5 inches deep and very small, and they accomplish the same thing. I mean, that's one thing. The components are smaller. The refrigerants have changed. So air conditioning used to use R12, which is an ozone depleting refrigerant. Fortunately, we've stopped using that and gone to R134A, which doesn't deplete ozone, but still creates global warming when it's released. It's still a global warming chemical. There's now a new refrigerant, R1234A, which is been used the last few years in some cars. Very expensive refrigerant. It doesn't deplete the ozone or cause global warming, so that's a good thing. But I've heard word that maybe that refrigerant is going to be changed to something else. So who knows? But that's kind of the most modern iteration. But that's really how air conditioning has changed. Other than that, the system operation is pretty much the same, whether you're talking, from a Tesla to a 1962 Cadillac. It's all pretty much the same. It's just, of course, the Tesla and a lot of hybrids will be an electric-driven compressor, not belt-driven, like you'll find on most other engines.
So this is a bit of an well-aged, well-loved vehicle. Is it worth fixing?
Well, the owner of this vehicle loves it. So she likes fixing it. But, it's always vehicles are really, let's say, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. It's like, people have attachments to cars. And so if it's worth it to you, then it's worth it to you. But there are cars where I will say, we tell people, I don't think you should, give our opinion. We don't think you should spend your money on this vehicle. And sadly, I see a lot of people who don't spend money on cars that are well worth fixing that don't. But everyone has their opinion. But the owner loves this car, so that's why we fixed it.
So there you go. If you're in Vancouver and needing AC repairs, the guys to see are Pawlik Automotive. You can reach them at 604-327-7112 to book your appointment, or check out the website pawlikautomotive.com. YouTube channel Pawlik Auto Repair. Hundreds of videos on there as well. Thank you for listening to the podcast, and always remember, we're in Vancouver. We don't provide technical support over the phone or by text, which I just got one. We're in Vancouver and we provide in-person service because that's the only credible way to actually provide service for you. And thank you, Bernie.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you for mentioning that. Thanks for watching. We really appreciate it.